What's going on, Soul Nation, and welcome to another No Rest for the Wicked video. My name is Brian, if you happen to be new around here, and we are starting to see the beginning of the next tease for the patch. And yes, if you guys saw my last video, note that we are anticipating October of 2024 for this update, and there's a lot of reasons for it, and I went into it in my last Wicked video. But to highlight what Thomas had to say about it, here we go to Discord, where he shares, folks, we're cooking up something very big, so please stay tuned for a bit. We'd like the next updates to really hit hard and ensure that we'll be able to show everyone that we've made our bed and deliver on the version that we have lined out. He goes on to say, there's a pretty massive update planned, and we'd still like to surprise you folks with a bit of what is coming. Also because we do a bigger marketing splash and to have to keep things a bit tighter to our chest because of that at the moment. And what he's alluding to in this is what I talked about in the last video. They're going to marry their promotion and marketing of this game around big updates, because that is what's going to get people to come back, and that's going to get people to check out the game for the first time. And if you right now listening to these words are still on the fence, I cannot recommend this game enough. It is really an incredible experience, and one that I cannot wait to see continue to evolve. But I get it, if you're not an early access type, if you don't want to wait around for a game to become a complete game, well, yes, there's also no harm, no foul in waiting, especially because we will see the console version at some point. There are big things, really big things yet to come. If you guys want to stay up to date on all the developments around this game, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if I do earn your subs, sound off in the comments below so I can welcome you guys officially to the channel. Now, I do want to highlight Prime here, who says subscribing to get that mention in the next video. Also, Amazon canceling Blue Protocol and how they're handling New World has me cautious. He left that over on the MMO channel, and in my next MMO video, I'll be sure to highlight his comment as well. But I just thought it was a good opportunity to highlight him, as I did say in my next video. I just didn't specify which channel. Speaking of which, guys, if you guys like MMORPG content, I do a lot of coverage of that on its own dedicated channel, and we're almost to 20,000 subscribers over there as well. So thank you guys so much for the support here, there, or wherever you give it. And let's get into the rest of this video. Today's video kicks off with a series of tweets and replies from Thomas regarding Magic and its future in the world of Wicked. We're going to go through all of that. We're also going to do a little bit of a community Q&A today as well. And finally, we'll conclude with our message of hope. But Thomas kicks it off saying, folks, I'm sitting on class diversity at the moment, and I'd love to hear some thoughts. I'd specifically be interested in what non-melee classes that you'd like to see us tackle in Wicked. We weren't happy with the elemental mage classes being too similar to one another, and my goal is that fire mages play completely differently than an ice mage, for example. Now, but overall, feel free to tell us about what kind of non-melee role-playing fantasy that you would like to see us tackle. Could be suggestions on which, what kind of runes would you like to see in the mages up to the entire class, think necro and so on, that you want to see in or what should be in Wicked. Faith is an attribute that isn't fully developed at the moment, so it'd be interesting to hear what you folks propose regarding more cleric priest style gameplay. And feel free to also suggest crazier things like calculator in Final Fantasy Tactics, etc. So let's hear it. And I weigh in on this subject because I have a love of Magic classes, and I love that he brought up Final Fantasy Tactics. If you guys have never played Final Fantasy Tactics, it is a must play. I think it is one of the best Final Fantasy games out there, bar none. And the job system in that game is truly incredible. So one, I'm not going to read my tweet to you guys because I'm talking to you directly. I'm thinking Time Mage. I love Time Mages. It doesn't necessarily, and again, I want to say when it comes to brainstorming, there aren't any bad ideas. Just throw out your craziest ideas. Sometimes they actually lead to really great ideas. I'm definitely somebody who's like, let's not sit here and shoot down your ideas. So if you're like, I really want to see Calculator in No Rest for the Wicked, great. Let's talk about that. Let's get excited about that. Let's share our ideas and see what happens. Anyway, I like Final Fantasy Tactics. I like Time Mage just as a kind of role identity. This would be any kind of speeding up, haste magic, faster attacks. That's for yourself, for your party. Also, you have a lot of dots, the damage over time abilities. That would be really cool to see. I also like druids. In fact, I wasn't alone. A lot of you guys also would love to see time, gravity, magic, and druids come into play. Necromancer is something that Thomas has said that they're looking to have for the 1.0 update, and we did an interview with Thomas as well. So thank you guys for all of you who checked out that exclusive interview, and we'll be doing some more. So whether you want to go sound off on Thomas's tweet directly, or if you want to sound off in the comments below about your thoughts and feedback on any of these things, I'll be sure to compile those, and hopefully we'll get another interview, especially when they get ready to start marketing the next big update. Again, planned for October. I'd loved it to be sooner, but that's just mentally where we're at. Anyway, outside of the Time Mage and the Druid, I also thought, I was like, well, if we're going to think outside the box, it'd be really cool to see maybe the magic burst and skill combos of Final Fantasy 11. If you guys aren't aware, in Final Fantasy 11, player A would do skill A, player B would do skill B, and then you could then cast a magic spell to trigger an extra amount of damage, a magic burst, a skill chain. That's the system. Now, I don't know if that's something that they want to bring in here, especially as a part of multiplayer, but it'd still be pretty cool. The other thing that they could do is you could self skill chain where you cast like a Fire 1 or Fireball 1, and then you can cast again, and it basically upgrades itself. And then finally, I kind of concluded with the idea that within the runes and spell system, it'd be interesting to see if there was some level of progression. Right now, I can hold down the charge attack on Fireball to make it even more powerful and bigger, but it'd be neat to see if there was some kind of gameplay element of casting and then following that cast up with another spell, and having thus your runes, as you level them up, open up new spells to you, higher tiered spells, but there's going to be obviously an ebb and flow, a balance to it. So those are just some of the thoughts that I had to share. Like Alan said, also like wizards that do elemental summons, shamans that do totems, necromancers that has the undeads, monks that has spirits, druid rangers that has animals. I like pet classes a lot. I feel like modern MMOs have really kind of gotten away from a lot of that because they're just too complex, and thus you end up having kind of this self-defeating prophecy of like, we're not actually trying to find the fun here. I know that balance will always be a thing when it comes to these kind of games, especially for Wicked, but at the same time, as long as we don't like feel hamstringed into one or two different builds, yeah, there we go. Then I think I'm gonna be perfectly happy. Scarf Barf says Gravity Mage. I echo that as well. Domunk says, what about Druid? Either shapeshifting or summoning animal familiars to fight with you. Also, do we have an updated roadmap? That's a really good question. We will see if we get that. I'm hoping we get that here in September, but I don't think they're going to give us a roadmap until they know their dates for marketing at a minimum, because you don't want to sit here and say, hey, we're gonna put out an update on the end of September, and then you miss that date and it's on the roadmap. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll be sure to cover it for you guys here as well. James says, in response to Thomas, if you added muskets rifles to the game, it could be a pretty cool sharpshooter class, your typical high single damage, slow reload type class. If guns are a step in the wrong direction, you could pull off the same move with crossbows instead. Thomas does say, and if you guys haven't seen, he is on no guns at Wicked, but they do have one-handed blowguns as an offhand, basically thinking crossbow. Also to see two-handed great bows and crossbows as well. And if you guys checked out my bow build for the current version, it's something that shreds. It is a really fun class job role to play, a little bit of a fantasy. Ivan asks about a martial art expert. Thomas replies, we'll introduce a gauntlet weapon types pretty soon, and that will cover and play similarly to Shotos. Now, when he says pretty soon, that's where we're talking about with the next update, seeing new weapons. They've teased off some offhands like pipes for magic casters, and to see gauntlets and more. Overall, like he goes on to talk about 200 weapons which is what they're kind of targeting for this game, and that is quite substantial. Speaking of which, this is an additional tweet from Thomas. He's promoting this video, in this case, talking about Street Fighter 3, what happened, talking about this in terms of it. So this is what he has to say. I thought this video was tremendously interesting from a dev's perspective. It shows nicely how fighting games went from not being great, new gen, to becoming an all-time classic, Third Strike. We're looking at which gear is the most popular and why, how various weapons can be exploited, etc. But PvP will add a whole new layer of complexity on top of all of that, and more than likely will need numerous iterations before it is all properly tuned. We'll have over 200 weapons, and it stands around 50 to 100 offhands, so it's going to be quite complex to figure out exactly what actions give unfair frame advantages, cause balance issues, etc. On top of all of that, players could have a wide range of enchantments through their gear, rings, etc. So I hope y'all will forgive us if certain setups lead to more wins on average than others. Another idea that always comes up is to allow players to play PvP with some of our story characters. That way, when we hand tune against one another, so that the players could then rely on this set of characters being balanced against one another. And it's an interesting idea. Basically, if you think about pre-builds when it comes to PvP, if anybody knows Destiny is a game, this is a game that I've spent so much time in, and one of the things I always advocated for is I love the ability to go in custom with your character and do those things. I think that was a real big draw. I think one of the disadvantages of that is in terms of trying to create that truly competitive scene, that fighting game scene, for example, where, okay, maybe you also have a curated version. And they had a competitive playlist, and I thought with Destiny's case, it could have been the perfect example of them taking advantage of that. You step into competitive, and the loadouts are going to be basically predefined or locked, or you have one of three choices, based off of the subclass. I get that the fantasy is obviously in the character, but when it comes to the purely competitive, that I think is something that could be of value, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I'm not saying I'm right by any means. It's just what I generally default to. It's I think, why not have a Halo mode in your Destiny game? Halo is pretty, it's pretty balanced. Destiny, definitely not so. And when it comes to the RPG and all of this, that is something that runs the risk of it. Now, we got another tweet here. Miniature Giant says, I'm really waiting for more PvE content and story and new areas to explore. PvP was never a consideration when I bought into early access. So any news on the PvE roadmap, dates, and milestones? Thomas says, don't worry, the immediate future, you should expect that we'll add another huge chunk of story content. I just have to think ahead already. And then Miniature follows up with awesome, can't wait, and thank you. So I think obviously this is continuing to confirm that the next update, what I call update number 4 in terms of its size, we'll see the breach, more story, more areas. That's going to open up the game in many new ways, and I think it's going to be really one for the books. I'm really excited to see where it goes. Now, let's jump into our community Q&A. This is where you guys have things that you ask in the comments of the videos, or things that you state. And so I'd like to highlight some of the things that you guys are talking about, and then we'll wrap up with our message of hope. Burb says here, bro, I hope anyone can help me. I just bought a PS DualSense controller. I'm playing on PC, and I wanted to start a new character on the Realm, but the old ones I've played were on mouse and keyboard, and the buttons that they were showing in games are Xbox buttons. I searched everywhere and I can't find a solution. It seems like there was yet a known issue before early access. Was it fixed, or is that hard to fix in it yet? Sorry I stuttered on the last bit of it, guys. I apologize for my dyslexia tripping me up on that one. Might have to delay the new playthrough until this is fixed. Unfortunate, sad face. Now, the good news is the devs are working on this. It did not make, obviously, the last update, but this is a known issue and it is a priority. And so for those of you on the PlayStation setup, the controllers work, but the buttons do not yet translate to the appropriate button that you would expect in a PlayStation case. That is coming. I would assume that that is also going to be a part of the next update, which I'm going to say is in October. And if I'm wrong, like I usually am, when it comes to dates, you never know what's going to happen. It's honestly just for fun. I'll gift out 5 members to the channel, and that's what we do around here. I'd like to be right. I feel like I'm very accurate. I was right. I've been right about a couple days. I'm not always wrong, but it's just a fun thing to have fun. I hope you guys enjoy. Now, the other question that we have here is from Harkening. Says, is there going to be a console release that you heard of? And the great news is, yeah, absolutely. PlayStation, Xbox, PC. And this also runs on cloud. So you could technically, if you have an Xbox and you have GeForce Now, you could be playing it on your Xbox. I do hope that we'll see a native app brought to the next Xbox, as they seem to be going more and more in line with PC rather than a traditional console. Now, all that being said, it is chime to jump into our message of hope. Now, this is an important segment for me. Unfortunately, I've got bad news to share in this case, and this isn't to get you down, but it's just to set the reality. So first things first, I've heard it stated multiple times that the most dangerous weapon a man has is his own hands. And this is so true. This year alone, we just got news just the other day that another guy who went to my wife's high school unfortunately self-deleted. This is the second one I know of this year alone. And it feels like, I don't know whether I'm getting older and that just becomes something, but there is something wrong, and there's something really plaguing men out there. And it isn't something that generally gets a lot of sympathy. And so just from man to man in this case, and I say that because I know 95% of you guys are men. I love you ladies. I appreciate you being here. But I can speak to the men. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. So in this regard, I want you to know that it's okay to have those kind of dark thoughts pop in your mind, but that doesn't define who you are, because you are worth living for. These little dark thoughts that pop into our head, and they pop into our head. I recommend chasing them away. But if you struggle with that, which I know I have in the past, I've struggled with anxiety and depression. And a lot of mine was all based off of hormones. And I talk a lot about eating right and taking care of your bodies, because there is I think a correlation to our mental health. I don't know what the direct connection always will be, but feeling physically good can also help you feel better. But also therapy. I went to cognitive behavior therapists. I really enjoy that style. It really kind of helps dig into the root thought that you might not even be aware of happening. And none of this is weakness, right? Society might say that also, like, oh yeah, like if you don't have toxic friends, then of course that you can share your thoughts. Yeah, it's all well and good. It's good to have good friends, for sure. That is something that I think when you think of a band of brothers, when you think of iron sharpens iron, when you think about what it is that we can bring, I try to bring a little bit of my men's group to these videos, because I hope that it can save somebody's life. Somebody's listening to this and they're thinking about it. Not in the idea popped into my head, but they're actively thinking about it. I love you. I want you to live. You are worth living. In fact, that's probably why those thoughts are popping in your head, because somebody doesn't want you to, because you got big things on your way. The world needs you. We're gonna need you. We need you now. And this is something that I think is incredibly important. So to the men out there right now, that's what I try to bring. But I know that because of the virtual nature and the social media nature of all of this things, all this stuff, it isn't as good as the real thing, right? It's kind of like, I'm bringing you Diet Coke of men's group, in these videos, at the end of these videos. I want to encourage you to find that men's group in the real world, because you can lean on them physically, where in this case, unless there is a wicked con, unless there is something like that, we're going to always have to have this communication through here and through the Discord server, which is open to you if you need. That's something that I want to always just be open about. I want you to know that you are loved. You're worthy of love. And I want you to also forgive yourself, especially if you're thinking about these thoughts. please don't do it. Raise your hand, ask for help. It is not weakness. And we need you. We need you around. Anyway, guys, I do appreciate it that if you hung out through the Message of Hope, and hopefully I will see you guys both in the next video, but also the next Message of Hope. That is kind of the mission of the channel. You know, I've been open and honest about it. It's not a surprise. Some people get mad. It's like, yeah, I get it. You want some escapism in your life. I'm not going to blame you. But that's not why I make content, and that's not why I'm here. And so I love video games. I'm going to keep sharing my love of video games for you, and I'm going to keep encouraging you to be the best version of you that you can be. I want you to become the person you have dreamt of. And it's not easy, but you weren't made for the easy stuff. In fact, you need to believe it because it's true. You're made to do some interesting things, and I believe in it. I really, truly do. All right, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. But until then, take care.